Congratulations, RSU business students. You're hired if your background check is cleared. Chances are, if you've made it this far in life, you've heard of background checks and are more than prepared to undergo one. But do you know why they are so important, how they are done, and why they should be done properly? Being a business student and studying human resource management, I have found in my studies and experience that it is more in-depth than you might originally think. Today, I will discuss with you preliminary, in-depth, and even secondary ways background screenings are done, and why they are so important to do correctly, and I will convince you to always ensure they are done properly. Let's first discuss how background checks are done. Preliminary checks are the first and easiest ways to conduct background screenings. They can be done by simply matching names and addresses to the information provided on the application to the applicant's ID or other easily accessible information. Checking references are another easy way to make sure you are getting accurate information from the applicant. By doing so, you ensure that you know who you are dealing with. After preliminary checks are done, more in-depth checks are usually next. These involve criminal background checks. In order to get a better idea of who is applying for the job, these checks are important to ensure safety and well-being for the employer and employee alike. In-depth checks are done by utilizing easily accessible online court record systems and even using agencies specializing in national record searches for as little as $15. In some cases, such as federally funded workforces or jobs involving children, fingerprinting is necessary. And in these cases, results can be returned in as little as 2 days. Aside from the criminal background checks, there is another commonly used screening test that is just as in-depth about letting the employer know who the applicant is. This is the drug test. Drug screening is standard practice in today's job market. Urine testing, though the least expensive and very reliable, is now thought to be testing a too narrow range of what is now considered illegal substances. In Behavior-Based Safety by Gary Petty, Kevin Connors of Conagra Foods noted a 10.4% increase of positive tests when submitting potential employees to hair follicle testing over urine samples. Because drug users are estimated to cost employers $10,000 annually, the better drug screening could save Connors' food distribution business nearly $13 billion a year. This is absolutely a crucial part of background screening that must take place for every potential employee. After in-depth background checks, there may still be question about who the applicant is and how they might respond to certain situations. This is where secondary screenings come in. Newer background checks have evolved to include honesty and integrity assessments. These types of tests are even used by the U.S. military. They help evaluate and verify the actions or intentions of a potential employee's past with possible future actions. This type of screening can be especially helpful when multiple qualified applicants apply for the same job. Now that you know a little more about some of the background screenings that take place, let's talk about why these checks are done. HireRight, a background checking agency, claims that nearly 1/3 of all applications contain outright lies, and that 3 out of 10 business failures are caused by employee theft. Checking backgrounds are done today to mitigate risk, improve the quality of new hires, and promote workplace safety. By conducting the proper background checks, like criminal background checks, drug screenings, and even implementing honesty and integrity assessments, you will ensure the highest quality of employee available for your workforce. Mark Lostein with ROG Consulting says you would be amazed what applicants leave off of their applications, and you don't want to hire someone who has stolen from prior employers, has a history of violence toward coworkers, and has harmed children. More importantly, you wouldn't want the guilt you would feel if someone was to get hurt because you didn't do your job before hiring a potential employee. Perhaps one of the most important reasons background checks are done is for safety. According to OSHA in 2014, 4,679 fatal workplace injuries occurred. Of those nearly 5,000 injuries, 403 of them were actually caused by workplace homicide. They also found that nearly 2 million workers report being victims of workplace violence each year. Because these numbers are so staggering, there has been a lot of research conducted that can help identify factors that lead to workplace violence, and thus can decrease the chance of future problems in the workplace. An employer's #1 defense and responsibility when hiring new employees is to do their homework, meaning they need to implement criminal background checks and drug screenings to ensure the safety of current employees and the workplace environment. Criminal background checks, drug screening, and honesty and integrity assessments are tools that must be utilized to match appropriate employees to the correct jobs, as well as protect employer and employees alike. These tools, however, are not discriminatory devices used to keep good people from a suitable job. Employers easily have access to free and inexpensive background screening tools to use at their discretion, and should do so to ensure the safety for their workplace environment. Thomas Peterson, who wrote Some Ethical Considerations on the Use of Criminal Records, reminds us and suggests that we cautiously consider potential employees who have committed serious crimes, meaning a crime that has resulted in 3 or more months in prison, and we should take less notice of those who have records of minor importance to avoid discriminatory actions. In doing so, we will surely select the right employee. To review, when background checks are done correctly, preliminary, in-depth, and secondary checks will help you to select the most appropriately qualified, safe employee. And in return, not only will the standard and quality of your workforce be raised, but the safety and the well-being of the environment you share will reach newer, better standards as well. So, now that you know more about how background checks are done and why they are so important, the next time you hear, "You're hired," you'll know what it took for these words to be heard and said with confidence. It is our responsibility to make sure it is done right. We ensure our safety and work environments. And if there is ever a question or concern about how these rules were implemented, never hesitate to speak with your HR today.